justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please remember to put your phones and pagers on vibrate. First of all, do we have any citizen concerns?
Connie Barrett. I had to come here and say this, even though this is not where I'm comfortable spending my time. When I read the quote in the newspaper that said the best course is to avoid conflict and confusion with the Sioux Rivers region, I have to ask, where are your considerations for the people you represent? The programs with Sioux Rivers are meeting their needs. Why do they have to drop what's working because you supervisors don't want to work with each other? The supervisors should not be thinking of themselves. I would hope that Mr. Ung and Mr. Raddig have the dispositions to do the appropriate work of putting the residents and services first. Do what you need to do to get productively working with Sioux Rivers region, at least for another year.
Thank you. Do you have anybody else with citizen concerns? Item number 2, approval of the agenda.
I move approval, Mr. Chair.
I will second the motion by Mr. Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Items 3 through 10 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 3, approval of the minutes of the March 13, 2018 meeting. Item 4, approval of claims. Item 5, county auditor, approval of liquor license application for the Foot Wedge Lounge in Sloan, Iowa. Item 6, A, approval of resolution thanking and commending Judy Herbst for years of service. Item B, approval of resolution thanking and commending Sharon Schroeder for years of service. Item 7, receive Commission of Veteran Affairs quarterly report. Item 8, A, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. 8B, authorization to initiate hiring process. 8C, approval to rescind the substance abuse and drug-free workplace policy adopted by the Board of Supervisors April 9th of 1986. And item 8D is approval of employee DH to exceed the allotted amount of family extended sick time. Item 9, community economic development. 9A, approval to accept $1,000 scholarship from Mid-American Energy Local Partners Program. 9B is approval to accept $500 scholarship from Professional Developers of Iowa. 9C, approval to accept the $1,000 grant from the Mid-American Energy Local Partners Program. Item 10, secondary roads. Item A is consideration of a permit for working in the county right-of-way for Buchanan Baptist Church. 10B is consideration of a permit for use of the county right-of-way for an underground utility for the city of Cushing. Is there any discussion on any individual items? I will move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 11, building services, approval of Taylor painting and restoration repairs to the courthouse rotunda, decorative plaster, and recorder's office ceiling in the amount of $16,860.
The item before you is to address 2 additional areas in the courthouse. The first being in the rotunda area. We discovered some decorative plaster, actually a large area that needed to be repaired while we were doing the other repairs. We have another area in the recorder's office in the ceiling. We've received requests over the past 2 years to have that area repaired. As you look through the quotes provided by Taylor Restoration and Painting, you'll see that most of the costs associated with all of this is for scaffolding setup and placement. But we'd like to go ahead and make these repairs while we have scaffolding on site, so we don't incur these additional costs for scaffolding at a later date. One of the things that you don't see on here, and just for information, is I also received a quote to repaint the dome area, the upper dome area where the painted mural squares are. We've got paint flaking away around those square murals. The cost of that was $36,000. I did not bring that to the board for approval, nor do I recommend that we do that at this juncture. Maybe at a later point in time when we're making other repairs to the courthouse, that might be addressed. But for today, I'd like to get approval on the 2 additional repairs listed in the agenda item.
Just out of curious, how much would we be saving on that re-erecting the scaffolding?
Not a lot, and that's why I decided it wasn't worth moving forward. If you look at the quote for the rotunda area, there's a what looks like an asterisk that's penciled in hand. That, and it lists a deduct for the rotunda area if we do both areas. That deduct was only about $2,500. To me, it just didn't seem to be worth it at the time, since we don't have really the money allocated, currently for that much repair work.
My dad had a Taylor painting, so I'm just, again, making sure that there's no conflict of interest, not the same one. So with that, I'd move approval.
Second.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Item 12, secondary roads. Consider approval for plans of project number ending in 55-97.
Good afternoon, Mark Nara, County Engineer. This project is for the replacement of a bridge on 150th Street. That's Old Highway 20, and this would be northwest of the town of Lawton. Parent 132 is how we refer to it, which is the DOT number. Our projects are numbered consecutively as they work their way through the program. I recommend approval of the plans.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Young, second by Taylor. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Nara? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item B, approved contract for project number ending in 73-97.
I'd move it.
Second. Motion by Taylor, second by Ung, to approve contract for project number ending in 73-97. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item C, approved contract for crushing PCC concrete from county stockpiles.
Questions?
I'd move it.
It's with
Second.
Cap Recycling.
Motion by Taylor, second by Ung. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Nara? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 12D is discussion of remaining projects and 1.3 million special project levy. This is an information item.
I wanted to give the board an update with where we stood on our special project levy projects. We're just right about at $4 million into the program right now. 11 of the 14 bridges promised under that project are either built or currently under contract. With 3 bridges left and the big grading job on County Road D50 that connects the intersection of County Roads L27, D50, and Highway 31, we're at a point where all 5 projects aren't going to fit within the remaining money. As we have gotten further progressed in the plans, the grading alone on the D50 grading project is looking to be somewhere between the $1.7 and $2 million figure. When we were putting this program together, we took a kind of a blind shot on some of the project costs. We looked at what was out there for a bridge and the places of the bridge that would normally go in on some that size. Some bridges cost more, some bridges cost less, as you can see when you look through the project estimates and then what the actual contract costs were with these. There were a couple of times where we were able to get by with box culverts and save some money. There was a couple of times where we had a major grading project going along with the bridge that pumped up that cost higher than what we had anticipated initially. But as we're coming here to the end, we have to make some choices. The D50 project is one that has a very vocal group of citizens down in that area, south of Anthon, north of Danbury, who see a lot of value in that route. It basically saves them having to run their livestock and grain semi-tractor trailers through the heart of Anthon to get to Highway 31 to get to grain markets. We have that large grain buying station currently that's about a mile and a half, 2 miles south of Anthon. That's one of the destinations that this project would serve. Short of using the money from the special project levy to complete this grading project, we'd have a difficult time financing it otherwise within our 5-year program. The bridges may take a little longer, but with their smaller cost, they're projects that we can still fit within our program over the next 5 to 7 years and complete 100% of that as promised. Since we looked at this and proposed this special levy in fiscal year 2012, we've seen roughly between a 15 and 20% increase in construction costs. Some of that's the environment we're in right now with competitive work going on I-29. The contractors out here, it's a seller's market. When that starts to taper down, hopefully we'll see a little better and more predictable bridge costs, when we're the only game in town, hopefully here in another 2-3 years when we complete the main work. I guess what I wanted to make the board aware of was we're coming down to crunch time on the last of this money, and to see if you folks had any preferences on where we go with what's left. April 10th is when we'll present our 5-year program for approval. That process has to be completed before April 15th and submitted to DOT. My plan at the office at this point in time is we were completing the grading project. At the time the decision was made, there was some controversy in the board that was in your position then. A couple of them weren't looking real hard at the grading as much as they were getting bridges done. With you guys being in the driver's seat now, I just didn't want to commit to a project with at least not giving you without at least giving you an opportunity to weigh in on where we ought to go as we finish out the use of that money. Again, the grading project is the most difficult to finance. It is expensive. Right now, with where we're seeing the rest of our money, we can probably get the grading and most of the paving paid for or we can get the 3 bridges that are in the program done with maybe 1 or 2 more bridges. So that's kind of the point we're at this point. This D50 grading project is very much like, I'll use the Haskell Avenue Bridge. Remember at Danbury, the people down there, what are you building that bridge for? And when we were in Mobile, they're saying, what are you building that bridge on a gravel road by Danbury for? So this is very much a project that was of local interest, much as those bridges are. Again, without the special project levy, it is the most difficult one for us to finance. I think if we don't do it with this money, we'd possibly be looking at not doing it until the revenues from eventually from CF Industries start to kick in, and the effects of the minimum levy on the value of that program begins to allow us to make some real headway in improving our road system.
Mark, what are people expecting right now? Because one of the things that I'll just speak for myself, that I think I learned is that when people are expecting one thing, and then, you know, on the Haskell Avenue Bridge, that was because of an act of God. So, you know, that is some extenuating circumstances. But if people are programmed and they're saying, well, I thought this was happening, but then you pulled a 180 on us and you told the engineer to do this or that, what are people expecting regarding the bridges and the grading project?
I think people would like to see it all done.
No, but that's, I know that already. But what are people saying? Well, the engineer told me that in 18 we were doing this, and that we had pushed these bridges off to 2021. And then you guys, in your infinite, or me in your infinite wisdom, you came and you told them to do something different. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and we would hear that from a subset of folks out there.
But what's been promised or programmed that we could be changing?
That is the program that was promised when we started the special project levy.
Okay.
Again, based on our early construction estimates, that final grading project is going to be between $1.5 and $2 million to fund that project alone. We had it budgeted in that program at $1 million. To make it work, we're going to have to bump 3 bridges out that I show at the bottom of the sheet you're looking at there. The bridges individually are the easiest projects to still complete without the special program levy.
How far back?
We can insert about 1 of them per year in the program as we go through. You know, we've already bumped a little bit from Haskell, so it'll be the year after Haskell that those come in. Those bridges have been looked at just like I looked at all the locally funded bridges to make sure that those 3 that I list down there are bridges that have a very good chance of surviving and remaining open to traffic until the time and place where we have the money for them.
Are they load restricted right now?
A couple of them are load restricted, yes. 2 of the 3 are. I think the other one can take loads, 1 truck on the bridge at a time, so.
So what you're telling me, I think, is everybody was expecting everything, but these 3 are being bumped because the grading prices have increased. Am I hearing you correctly?
That's a part of the reason, because the grading prices have increased. And then you can see that some of the other projects that were paid for in the program did come out a bit higher than what was estimated. Some were higher, some were lower. We're not too far off, remarkably, at the point that we stand right now. My office's plan at this point, unless we would hear different from you, would be to continue with the grading project. Again, because it's the one that would be most difficult to fund. But I also didn't want to make that assumption that that would be the way you'd want to go and then end up with a delegation coming in off one of those 3 bridges and saying to you, you know, why didn't you do our bridge instead of that grading? Nobody uses that road. We've heard that with projects that have already been in the program. So,
do you think the grading project would benefit more people than the bridge options?
The bridges are very locally used bridges, so yes, I would say the grading would benefit more people.
Okay.
Basically, once that is done, we'll not only reduce the semi-traffic in the town of Anthem. And this was one of the things that got me to buy into the project, because it was not one of the first projects I proposed when we went out and did our Little Dog and Pony show. It was one of the alternates that was out there, and we had the group in the southeast corner advocate very strongly to get that project done because they felt it was of high value to them. We've nicknamed the project in the office when I share with you outside of the public meeting, but it's named after one of the people in that area who was a very strong advocate for it. We kind of call it the Memorial Highway as a nod to that individual. But this goes back to before we even started talking about the $1.3 million a year levy, that we had this group come in 2 subsequent fiscal years to talk to board members about seeing if there wasn't a way that we could get that last 2.25 miles of County Road D50 paved out to Highway 31. And there's a potential that we could even maybe get, once the grading's completed, we might be able to get some of the federal swap money to help pay for it. It's a major collector, so it would be eligible for regional RPA funds.
Mark, I'm going to ask you a couple, and I think you've answered each one of these just in a roundabout way that I haven't been able to keep them clear. When I first heard about this levy, I was told it was a bridge levy. But apparently this project was part of the original levy.
The paving project and the grading project were part of the original.
Okay,
yes.
that's all I need there. You said the 3 bridges, 2 of them have restrictions?
Yes.
But none of them are imminently going to be closed?
That's correct. None of them have a component that appears to be in danger of failing that would require.
Okay. And after we get the Haskell done, you think we could do one of these a year just in our normal routine?
We'd be able to absorb it in the rest of our program.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What our program is looking at right now is our 5-year program is going to be a 6-year program. So these projects would trickle into that last year, and then we would substitute in again based on looking at the probability of failure before replacement with each of the bridges when I bring that 5-year program into you.
Okay.
It's a good set of questions.
We good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Do you feel the need to have an action item on this next week, or should we just proceed with assuming we get the grading project done and follow through as our office has begun to process this? Do you want to have an opportunity to hear some feedback if anybody's watching today? Or
I would rather go with a recommendation of the engineer unless an individual supervisor deems that it's necessary to take action differently. That way you can be blamed in some part.
That's right. That's what they pay me the big bucks
no,
for.
but I do think that, just the experience of the more machinations that we do with this, unless there's something that's grossly out of.
It's just a factor of inflation of construction costs and the volume of the work we were trying to do, and that we find ourselves at this point. And I at least wanted to get the information out there as we finish the use of these funds. I think we're going to be delivering 13 very good projects of the 16 that were originally offered to folks. And with Dennis's help, we've been able to account for every dollar. We got some bang for the buck because one of the bridges that was in this program was subject to FEMA replacement. If you notice in there, we had a credit from FEMA of $437,000. We'd really be trying to skin by, even to pay for the grading project, we wouldn't have any portion of that paving project paid for if we hadn't had that flood come along in this case. But that did provide us some assistance, and we made sure that we credited this special project fund account and didn't put that money into other purposes. So I hope we're showing that we're delivering as promised. It's just that costs are such that we can't deliver as much as we had hoped.
as quickly.
Well, it takes time.
Yeah, but I mean, we will get the other 3 done.
Yeah.
I think I've got enough to answer questions, so I'm ready to just move on as it is.
Very good. That's the way we'll proceed.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Item 13, Board of Supervisors, Historical Committee update.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I thought that this, Supervisor Ung and I believe that this item deserved a little more time or attention than just reports on committee meetings, because what I believe is coming up is a big deal, and that's the Woodbury County Centennial that we're going to celebrate. The first item is a school presentation contest, and this is in the backup, and there is a contest for all K-12 students. Every student in the Sergeant Bluff Community School District received this home, and it's gone through the directors of curriculum in the Sioux City schools, and we're working with the other rural schools to Karen says it all went out. So there's 3 different categories for high school. It's an essay or presentation on the historical backdrop of the courthouse, what was happening during the time period from 1916 to 18, the significance of the listed battles, and considering the unique quality. If it was a different time, how different the character of the building would be. The middle school is the murals and artwork of the courthouse, and what do they represent, and how does it reflect what people valued at that time and what is valued yet today. And then for the elementary level, it's what happens in the courthouse and why it needs to last 100 more years. So just describing the functions there, why is it important in the county, and how do the jobs of those who work in the courthouse play a vital role in our lives. So these are all due in 17 days, and we wanted to focus less on the format. So it could be an essay, it could be a PowerPoint, a Powtoon, or a sway. Those are terms I learned from my kids. And as long as it's presentable, and what we mean by that is it can be presented to the public. They're not cash, but gift certificate prizes from Barnes & Nobles and Thinker Toys as listed, and we're hoping that we get some good feedback. So that's that. And then the Centennial Days events is here. And this is in your backup as well. And I won't read all of this, but this is Tuesday, May 1st to the 5th. And just to give you some of the highlights, we'll have a proclamation and rededication of the time capsule. That'll be the Board of Supervisors and remarks by officials. So we may look to actually have a board meeting just ahead of that to do some routine business and then roll right into that. And then you'll see that there's lunch and learns. Law Day is that first day. The Lunch and Learn on day 1 is going to be historic architect Pete Franks, and he's going to talk about the value of the historic courthouse, followed by a presentation from the USD's Dean of Law, and he's going to talk about the separation of powers in one of our courtrooms in 203. Also, Judge Walsh has agreed to present on 100 years of historic cases in justice in Woodbury County. The May 2nd we'll be over at the Public Museum on the sculptor Alfonso Iannelli and his Chicago influence, and then Kenny will present on restoring some of the efforts of the past and the future to continue the courthouse. Thursday we're going to start live tours. We are going to unveil the first virtual smart tour that day, and so you will actually be able to go through the courthouse listening and orienting yourself with different placards, and it'll give you the audio while you have the visual in front of you. So that should be pretty cool. And we're working on a way it's called Matterport. That's where you can zoom into different places, even from home, with a realtor-like view. So that's should be good. Friday is going to be Kids Day, and then we'll present those winners. And then Saturday, a celebration of our courthouse. We are going to have a banquet dinner. We have invited the governor. We have places for 250 people. And then we have some just real renowned people. Guy Wilson from the University of Virginia, professor of architectural history, and Tim Samuelson, curator of history of the city of Chicago, who is known throughout the Midwest and beyond. So that's some pretty cool stuff, one of which is something that Supervisor Ung's been working on, and that is the website that's listed at the bottom. And so with that, that's the segue. That's your setup.
It's my setup. Well, as you just heard, it was the committee's desire to have a website that would be a one-stop shop for all things County Courthouse Centennial. We're logging off right now, but ideally that would show the website, and likely will in a few minutes. So the items that Supervisor Taylor spoke about earlier are on the website, in addition to other fun facts and other information on how to donate. It was basically, see how long I can filibuster. It's basically a product of me meeting with WCICC. So as I said in the committee meeting earlier today, any deficiencies are my own. I've been asking for feedback from the Board of Supervisors by email, the committee, and even the media. So I made a couple changes given those points of feedback, and hope to make it from a working product into something that represents the courthouse well. It's prominently titled, and it's easy to get to. You just have the website of the county /100. We decided it was best to have something simple that you don't have to spell out or remember, and something that can be printed on all these invitations and materials. And so it is one page. You're not going to get lost in the website. And after the centennial is over, we will retain portions of that, some of the pictures of our restoration efforts on the website, but for now it's prominently its own section on the home page. Boy, what else can I say?
Well, and the website address is, and then maybe we can start off the next meeting with it up and do a little 5-minute thing if that, because this could be a, but, and I just wanted to add, it looks cool. And that's why I didn't put it together. So Supervisor Ung did a great job with technology. Looks great, looks professional. So, and the website address is?
/100, WoodburyCountyIowa.gov/100.
So with that, that's a teaser for the next meeting.
It may not be done logging off by this meeting.
My fourth
I'm trying to take some pressure off you both here for a second. On these virtual tours, remind me, that's all set up with WCICC, or do we have some outside help with that?
Yeah, so WCICC stepped up their game in a great way because they basically have the technology to do so, and it's kind of a GIS mapping sort of thing. But what we wanted people to do is not look at this when you walk around, otherwise why come to the courthouse? So we wanted to be primarily the audio, but then you're orienting yourself. Now there's some things that you can't see. You can't go up behind the dome, you can't go into the old jail, so there may be a couple of different little videos that could take you beyond. That's one thing. The other thing is I'm down in Kansas City and I grew up in Sioux City and I'd like to go, but I can't. That's the Matterport technology where you can actually zoom in and look at the details here, and you can do a dollhouse view, you can take the roof off and do some pretty cool things.
So there's two types of tours we're advertising. It's that virtual tour we're going to unveil, and then we're also going to have a day of, is it Thursday, that we will have on the hour, every hour tours of the courthouse led by volunteers and committee members. So we're excited about that and hope to get more information out. Mr. Chair, I guess if you want to come back to this later on in the meeting, if it's ready, that's fine with me. Otherwise,
yeah, we can do that. We don't have any, seem to support one comedic sidekick at the meeting tonight, but that's okay too. We will move on, and hopefully we'll have the website back up shortly, but let's move on to item 14, Board of Supervisors, approval of authority for Woodbury County to apply to Iowa DHS for exemption from being required to enter into a regional service system for delivery of mental health and disability services for FY 2018-19. Mr. Taylor, would you like to open with that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you know, without reiterating the long history here, Rolling Hills has signaled to accept Woodbury County as of July 1st, 2019. Very briefly, I will update you that I was listening telephonically to their very thoughtful and deliberate deliberation today on crafting a resolution that they're putting in front of their county boards, wherein they'll have 30 days to approve by a majority, in which time then it would come before this board, and then we would be in, which I think would be a great thing for Woodbury County. So with that said, there's a gap here from July 1st, 2018 to June 30th of 2019, and so this motion would ask for approval, as was just read, to Iowa DHS for exemption. There is a Senate Study Bill 3204 that Plymouth and Sioux have filed. We believe that authority rests with Iowa DHS for exemption anyway. However, I have asked for Woodbury County to potentially be amended into that bill just in case, and to be able to stand alone otherwise. In talking to Sue and I'll just say to Chairman Luch, I think that they believe as well that standing alone, separate from us for that year, is a better alternative to being a three-county region that they know we're trying to exit from. So we need to have our focus on high-quality mental health services, and so this will help us to move forward for that interim year. Those are my opening remarks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Well, if we can stand alone for 1 year, why don't we see if we can't stand alone forever?
Because I think that that's not the intent of regionalization. Polk County was the only one who was allowed to do so. And I did speak, full disclosure, with Jerry Foxhoven, Director of DHS, this past week, and I was very, very pleased with how accessible he was. And he said at some point he'd like to come here and visit and help. He doesn't want to stand in the way of success. And knowing that we have provisionally been accepted to another region is willing to work with us. So I thought that those were very good overtures as well.
Mr. Chair, what form is this application going to take? Are you going to write DHS a letter? Is Mr. Taylor going to call Jerry Foxhoven?
There's an application process that we'll need to complete. We have been advised that that is similar to what counties engaged in pre-regionalization in 2015, so that I assume it would be a fairly simple letter referencing this motion and that accompanying application.
Is that a formal form or
it's a formal,
need to go by?
Yeah, there's a formal form that existed pre-2015 when counties sought to stand alone. I believe there were 3 or 4, Polk being the only successful one. So we'll have to put together that information. I would assume we will rely on our coordinator and staff to be able to help, and I think the timeline to be timely would be somewhere in the next 2 weeks, and accompanying that application, I would assume a very simple letter stating from the chairman that the board took this action, and please find and close the accompanying application as was authorized in this meeting.
Does that help? So we're looking for the approval from the board to move forward with the application at this point.
And pending any other.
I just have one quick one.
Yep.
Is this just a DHS decision, or is this going to the House or Senate?
This, we believe, is a DHS decision.
Okay.
However, as there is a Sioux and Plymouth County bill, which is what I'll characterize Senate Study Bill 3204 to be, I have asked as an individual supervisor if there is language there, we would like language as well, because there may be Sioux and Plymouth making a claim to having a continuation of a region. And so if they say, well, Sioux River still exists, there's portions in the 28E, for example, referencing assets, and I'm thinking the crisis center, where they may say, well, that still belongs to us. And so if the legislature speaks on Sioux and Plymouth, we would like them to speak on Woodbury. If the legislature is silent and it's wholly left to DHS, then I think that's fair. But what I don't think would be acceptable is if they speak on those two regions and remain silent on this one.
And then are we expecting a decision by DHS before July 1st? What happens if we don't hear back after the new budget season starts?
Yeah, I would hope and expect that would be, otherwise there's repercussions, right?
Okay. And then Taylor Goodwin, Taxpayers Research Council. Didn't say it at the meeting, sorry.
This study bill, is that going to still go through the legislature?
The study bill has passed out of Ways and Means.
Okay, so it missed the last funnel.
But it's funnel proof because that's why it's in a taxing committee for, how that works.
So
So it went through a subcommittee, it passed 3-0, it went to committee. It was supposed to hit the Senate floor tomorrow, but I don't know that it will any longer. And the reason I don't know how much the legislature wants to embroil itself into something that may be a 2 versus 1, there's repercussions there. So we'll have to see what form it takes.
Especially for a legislature that represents parts of both counties.
Yeah, right. That's the rub for at least
one of them want to get away from it.
Mm-hmm. So with that, pending any other discussion, I would make a motion to approve the authority for Woodbury County to apply to Iowa DHS for exemption from being required to enter into a regional service system for delivery of mental health and disability services for FY19.
Motion by Taylor, I will second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Passes 3-1. Mr. Potabom voting against.
Still, I told you it won't be done logging off by next week.
As soon as we all leave, it'll pop up. That's what I know.
Well, anything you'd like to add?
Looks good. It's nice and simple, has some information, and you can see it on your own computers after you leave this meeting.
Is there a website we can go to find this?
Well, I'm on
WoodburyCountyIowa.gov/100.
Thank you.
Understanding that you are, with a proclamation, you're doing the part of Levi Woodbury, is that role playing?
Really? First you take my parking spot.
It's my Keith Raddick lame joke for the night.
Well, we will move on. Reports on committee meetings. I have one on the Community Action Agency of Siouxland. Jean Logan has been retained and has been given a raise, which she subsequently turned down, and is donating it back to the Community Action Agency of Siouxland, as I understand it. So good on her. She does a marvelous job with that organization. That is like its own little learning curve on that entity. Every time I go to a meeting, they do a lot of things with a lot of children. Anybody else? Mr. Young, do you have any input on, say, the Historical Committee update, a website or anything?
Oh, now that you mention it, I'll just turn over my shoulder and notice spontaneously that the website is up. So, it's been up for a week or so. It's not as if we were working on it in the last few minutes, but it's a single page. It has the date at the top, which is the most important thing. We decided not to make it too complicated and get lost in the website and go into different pages. So when you click on Schedule Tour Fun Facts, it'll just jump to that portion of the page. So, if you scroll up a little bit first, there's also scrolling, rotating, some stories there, news stories on the Centennial that we'll add to as we go along. I can link to those directly. And then you go down, there's the calendar. It's been approved by the committee. The committee put a lot of work into that and getting the speakers and everything. On the upper right there, you can click to download or print it. All that does is open up a PDF that you can print with the logo and hand out those to your friends and family. If you scroll down, there's a section that says who's on the committee. So on the left, you have that. If you click on the hyperlink, it goes directly to the committee page for this committee, where you can see the minutes and who's on the committee and all that. And then there's a blurb about how to donate by mail. There's been some donations over the years to the foundation. It's a 501c3, and it's going to have hopefully some more impact going forward. We have some sponsorships already that we'll be listing on the website shortly to honor those individuals, businesses, and local governments that contribute. And then there's a section on courthouse tours that gives a phone number to contact the board office, mentions the tours that Mr. Taylor mentioned, along with the kids tour and how to go about that. We'll add to that a little bit more as we, perhaps define some parking areas where you wouldn't necessarily get a ticket after coming to view the courthouse. We have to work with some other government agencies on that, perhaps. Fun facts and Q&As. Basically, read the Lindblade book, some of our previous pamphlets, and came up with some of those fun facts that hopefully are interesting in the balance of being a little lighthearted and easy to read. So it's not too much like an encyclopedia. We link to Sioux City Brick and Tile at the top, when we mention them, because they were the company that built the courthouse and sourced the brick. At the very top, you see the 80-page nomination form. There's all these little kind of Easter eggs in there where you can click and it'll pull up a picture or a PDF that explains what we're talking about. And finally, we will have some pictures on the website once we do. So they'll have little captions and little, hopefully, images that you wouldn't be able to see just by Googling the county courthouse. It'll be our building services department replacing something and explaining the background, or at a press conference in the past, we had some winners of some drawing contests we'd like to put up there and get the public engaged there too. So that's about it, unless there's any questions or, of course, feedback.
I just reiterate, all this takes a lot of time. So appreciate all the work that went into it. Looks really good. So
Thank you very much. Any further reports on committee meetings?
Do you have anything you wanted to mention from WCICC? Pretty generic meeting, but
Well, they're still trying to get together with a basic number for the software cost. Sounds scary, but I don't have any ironclad numbers yet. So, anything to add?
our crack auditor hasn't gotten any solid numbers yet.
That would be correct.
That was the big discussion at the meeting, was getting software that would work both ways.
he said I'll get back to you. Checks in the mail.
Before,
The software update, how much we're talking, or if we know yet.
I think the word I kept hearing was ugly on the cost.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we've had several meetings about the new software. We do have a quote, but we're trying to assess some other of our expenditures that we currently have, what we may not have in the future, before we put an official proposal together to tell you what the cost will be. There is going to be a rather large implementation cost, and there are some unknowns, such as vendor travel, some of our imaging, of how we're going to pull in the imaging that we currently have in storage. Some of the motor vehicle files go back to the 60s. The IT department has been great about helping us assess what we have in storage as far as the number of documents and the amount of storage that's being used. We actually have the company that we're looking at, Tyler Technologies, is going to be here Friday. If anybody's interested, they're going to be discussing the imaging, their imaging system, and how they propose to bring our information into theirs. So that'll be Friday morning on 8th floor. If you want to attend, you're welcome to. It's probably going to be the treasurers, auditors, and recorders staff. We're the primary ones that use the imaging. So we've also contacted a project manager. We're looking at possibly having somebody come in about 10 hours a week to assist. This is going to be a long process, probably about a year before we get it fully implemented. We're hoping that we can implement it by April to do the financials and May to do the real estate, so that we're up and running by July of next year. So.
Yes, it was what, 215,000 for the implementation, and how much was for the maintenance? 145,000.
I believe it's 145,000 per year for a 5-year perpetual license contract, and that would include any upgrades during that 5 years. There would not be an increase in that cost for the 5 years. There's an option to sign up for 6 to 10 years, but that includes different parameters of potential raises of 3 to 5% for that remaining 6 to 10 years.
We have 120 days to act on that. We will be looking at what this particular company is charging other counties in Iowa to kind of get a comparison to make sure that we're not getting taken to the cleaners. But it's going to be a big undertaking. And we met with some of the city's finance folks there. They're concerned, as well they should be. Because it is going to, reduce the some of the efficiencies that have been gained. We've been on the same software as the city for almost 20 years now, and they are concerned that because the city and the county's expenses are going to go up, but we just don't really have any choice at this point because of what we're facing with the audits and what the federal government is requesting of us to clean up our act. Basically, is what they've notified us and told us to do. I talked to the commission and said that I still think it's a valid thing for the city and the county to share IT resources. They've been doing that for over 30 years now. And you just would have one administrative staff. You still have all those people who support, and there's been a real evolution, even since I've been here, what the mission of the IT department was. When they used to write all the software for the county and the city, they no longer do that. So it's mostly a support staff. We have to go through. It won't cost the $145,000 a year maintenance. That cost actually would be reduced by what we are paying for HTE now. Plus, the auditor charges us an extra $15,000 a year because of the way that the software is put together at this point. Those are the type of anticipated savings that we will have. But we're not trying to hide it. It is going to cost us more money.
We'll also save, you can reduce that amount by the amount that we're currently paying to Solutions, which is the real estate software that we're using. And Tyler Technologies has matched the price that we're paying for Solutions. They advised us that they have 3 counties that they have the special Solutions deal where they're trying to convert Solutions over to Tyler, and we're the 3rd county, so.
When I first came here, board, the IT, there was some friction that was involved in those things, and over the last several years, things have run very smoothly, and I'd hate to see anything change that.
There's no reason the city would change along with us, would they?
No.
I've invited them to come and see it when we have it fully functioning, and I told them that they probably will really like the looks, but I don't think they're too excited about that idea. Yeah,
No,
it's
they
very
said there would be
highly
some
unlikely.
retirements involved if that was going to happen.
They're currently using some of the Tyler technology. They have a time card system that's called ExecuTime, and the city is using that. They've been implementing that for a while, and there's a few of them over there who are pretty pleased with it. So that's what we're going to be going with, because we'll have to convert our time card system too, because it will no longer be compatible. That's all part of the package deal.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? I'm paying attention now, Marty.
I'm glad somebody woke you up. Thank you, Michelle.
Anything else on board or on committee meetings? Do we have any citizen concerns? Hearing none, are there any board concerns? We are adjourned.